Hi, I'm David Downs. I am a cancer survivor. When I was sick, one of the key things that we discovered was that humour was a great way to kind of combat, the fear. Humour and curiosity are great defences against fear. I used to run a comedy club years ago. I was a stand-up comedian, and I always sort of looked at life that way, that actually you can be serious without being solemn. Bye Chewy. So one of the things I learned about when I was a comedian is that there's a big difference between being serious about something and being solemn about it. When you're solemn, you're sad, you're miserable, but you can be serious, take something seriously, but at the same time actually have some humour, and that changes the way you think about things. It's very important when you're going through a major illness to keep your mood up, to be positive if you can, and that actually changes your brain. It actually gives you this kind of optimism and the sense that you can actually get through tough days. When I first got sick, I started writing. I just found everything quite funny, because if you've never been in a hospital, things are just weird the way they do stuff. So I started writing this column, and it went on an online newspaper here in New Zealand, and they got read by lots and lots of people. Thousands of people a week were reading this column, which was great. Every week I wrote one, whether I felt like it or not. And then that was ultimately what saved me. I reflect a lot on the lessons I learned during cancer, and there's lots of bad stuff that happens, but there's actually lots of good stuff too. So it's always important to reflect back. For me, one of them, for example, was this idea that you've got to put yourself in the position of someone who's a participant, not a victim. It's very easy to consider yourself a victim, particularly when you're in hospital and there's people doing stuff to you, and if you allow yourself to sort of become this victim mindset, it's a very negative space to stay in. Whereas if you put yourself in the position of being a participant in your own rescue, in your own treatment, your mind shifts, and you're actually now more like in control, which is a really important thing. So that's one sort of key lesson. I also think a lot about this idea of resilience, and what does resilience actually mean. That's kind of what humans do. We will get sad, we will impact, we'll have a cry, we'll feel horrible when we've learned something that we didn't know before, but after a few days or a week or whatever it might be, we need to find our way back out of that again. And that's not ignoring it, and that's not being overly strong. It's just realizing that humans actually have this amazing ability to bounce back. So when I was in hospital, and I was in there for weeks and weeks at a time, and I couldn't leave the room. I was on a drip. It was a very toxic chemo dose. I was cytotoxic, it was all chemicals. I couldn't leave. And I realised quickly that we had to do something a bit different. I couldn't get all depressed about the fact that I couldn't leave the room. I had to think differently. And what we decided to do, we being my family and I, by the way, is if I couldn't leave the room, what I could do is change my perspective on the room. And so we used to pretend that I was going on holiday. Instead of going to hospital, I'd put up posters on the wall in the hospital, and I'd say I'm in France and I'm in Fiji, and I'd wear props and costumes, and it built up this resilience and this idea that I was still me. And then as things went through, I've realised that it was actually helping me. I was starting to actually look forward to things. I was anticipating what was the next theme I was going to choose. How could I make this even cooler? What were the positive things I could get my fellow patients to do, etc. One of the big heroes behind any patient's journey is their family, and for me, that's my kids, and we called them superheroes because actually it's a bit of a joke, but one of the kids changed the autocorrect in our phone so that every time we wrote Jack, it would change it to Superman. Actually, it was a really good metaphor after a while, because they were superheroes. They're really supportive. And then of course my wife, who's incredible, this amazing support, and it's much harder on the carer than it is for the patient. It's my honest belief. I'm just in hospital, stuff's happening. Catherine's the one who's running around trying to look after the kids, trying to kind of balance family life and going to hospital to visit me and all that sort of stuff. So to me, they're the real people that need support and help. And terminal cancer is a really tough thing, because you get to this point where you can't do it by yourselves anymore. You think you're all strong at the beginning, you're trying really hard, but actually you just need help from other people. And one of the most powerful things you can do is actually accept help or ask for help. When I first got sick, one of the best things that happened was people started being really nice to me. It was really remarkable. And then I started to realise that actually people were doing things for me all the time, and it became a bit of a joke. I would play along and I'd go, sorry, I can't help with the dishes because I've got cancer. Or, hey Josh, can you mow the lawns because I've got cancer. And I actually they were teasing me all the time about the playing the cancer card. Oh, you're always playing the cancer card. And then my friends at work made me this set of cancer cards.
So I sell them now, I buy them, sell them and give the money to charity so other patients can make fun of it as well. Because this is the thing, when you make fun of something, it takes away its power, you know. The word cancer is this sort of big, horrible word. Lots of people get really worried about it. But when you make a joke out of it, you say, oh, well, I'm just going to play my cancer card in this situation. People go, oh yeah, haha, yeah, it's funny. And it depowers the evilness that is cancer, and it empowers the patient, puts them back in the driving seat. I'm a huge believer in the power of medicine and science, and in things like clinical trials. So even right at the beginning of this whole process, even when we were going through chemotherapy, I was researching and finding out what else was available, like what was the next option. Not some alternative therapies, although, you know, I don't have a problem with people trying those. But for me, I just loved finding out what was happening in the world of science. And ultimately that was an amazing thing, because that's where I ended up. I ended up in Boston at Massachusetts General Hospital, which is a massive teaching hospital for Harvard Medical School. And I went on to this treatment called CAR T-cell therapy, which is a really advanced new type of cancer therapy where you use the body's own immune system to fight cancer with some genetic engineering. It's quite amazing. But to me, that just shows the value of the research that's going on constantly and the progress that's constantly being made. So the type of therapies that are available now and that are in research now are really mind-boggling in terms of how much we know about the human body, what's the benefit, you know, how science can really change the way that medicine works. So for me, that was a major breakthrough, and I was really pleased to be able to be part of it. And we need it because, you know, globally, and particularly in Australia and New Zealand, we've got some really high incidence rates of cancer. Been through terminal cancer and survived, you know, it changes your perspective on life remarkably, of course. All sorts of things, you know, your work life, your family life. One of the things you realise is you kind of what's your purpose? Like, why are we here to do anything? I know it sounds really big, but actually everybody goes through this phase, I think, in their lives. It's just sometimes when you've had cancer, you get there quicker, or you have more of a reason. And for me, what it's highlighted is that, you know, we don't have much purpose in life apart from as a network of people to look after each other and to help as much as we can other people. And that's where I find, you know, a lot of joy and a lot of meaning. Because for me, you know, you see other cancer patients who are struggling, or you see, you know, charities that are doing amazing work but need extra help. You know, I was very lucky getting help from people. You know, people reached out to help me, you know, raised money to help me, got me to Boston, etc. And now I feel like I can pay it forward with others, and I'm really lucky to be able to do that sort of thing. So brain cancer kills more children than any other disease, and you know, the financial burden, the cost, the impact on the family as well as the patient is enormous. And you know, I know better than anyone, having gone through what I went through in terms of a year of chemotherapy and going to another country for treatment and cost of fortune, and you know, just the disruption to my family and our lives. I know how important it is to support organisations like this, and for patients to know that there's an organisation out there called Cure Brain Cancer Foundation. I mean, you're talking about real hope, and so I really hope that people get behind the work that's going on here and help financially, you know, help with all the sort of support you can, and know that patients really appreciate what's going on.